Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bharat Army podcast. Welcome to the extremely sleep-deprived Bharat Army podcast, because we've all been up watching the test match from last night. So before we even get started on today's episode, Ajinkya Rahane, Captain Marvel, what a knock, 104 from 200 balls. India currently lead by 82 runs against Australia, bouncing back after that 36 all out, which we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that on this podcast. But yes, an amazing knock by Ajinkya Rahane, Captain Marvel at the moment. And let's hope that this test is victorious for us, because Lord knows that we need it. But this is a new episode of the Bharat Army podcast, and 2020 is coming to an end. Thank God. I'm sure that most of us are happy to see 2020 behind us. And we are going to be talking about India's test team of the decade. And we have the finest of the finest cricket connoisseurs here today to talk about their picks of India's test team of the decade. We've got our pod regular Rav on this podcast. How's it going, Rav? You all right?
Yeah, morning. Just a little bit tired, as I'm sure all of we are. But really looking forward to talking about this. There's been a lot of really good picks for India over the last decade, so let's pick the best ones.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we also have the returning marauder Amish from Hounslow back on the podcast as well. How's it going, Amish?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Thank you very much. All good.
You sound pretty sleep deprived yourself there, Amish.
I am, mate. It's been a tiring 2 days.
But what 2 days?
But worthwhile, exactly.
Worth it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've also got Ronak joining us again. Ronak, how's it going?
Hi, Ashish. Yes, sleep deprived much. Late night football, early morning cricket. But I think, yes, we still have around 1.5, 2 days maybe of cricket left. So I think sleep needs to, be given a break for a couple of days more.
Oh, it's just a couple of days. Well, why not? We've also got Gurkirat joining us on this podcast again from Delhi. How's it going, Gurkirat?
It's been good. Really happy with the comeback of the team over the last 2 days. It looks like that we've put Adelaide horror behind, and hopefully tomorrow's another good day, and we end 2020 on a winning note, hopefully.
We hope so. And we've got Dia joining us as well on this podcast. How's it going, Dia?
It's been going amazing. Thank you so much for having me over here. And yeah, very excited to discuss this entire playing 11 of this decade.
Well, yeah, we're going to get right into it. Our test playing 11 of the decade for India, eh? So we're going to start off today's discussion by talking about our openers pick. So let's stick with Dia. On this one. Dia, who are your openers?
Well, for the openers, I have got Murli Vijay and Virendra Sehwag with me. Although I had a little bit other options as well. It's of Shikhar Dhawan and Gautam Gambir. Maybe a left-hand, right-hand combination. But I'm sticking with Virendra Sehwag. And yes, Murli Vijay has been one of the greatest test openers for us in this decade. I mean, especially his performances in the year 2014 in all the away tours, whether it's England, it's Australia. He has got 100, 450s. I remember that he scored in Australia. That Trent Bridge 100 also I remember in 2014 that he scored. So his performances against big teams has always been great, and not just away tours. He has a brilliant test record in India as well, whether it's 2016 against England, he got 200s. So the stats speaks for themselves that he has been exceptional for us. So I've got him in my team. And Virendra Sehwag, although he got retired in 2013, but till then his strike rate speaks for the amount of caliber that he possesses. Because having a strike rate of 80 above in test cricket is not easy. So I think if Murli Vijay is there who can, just bat and bat, I've got Virendra Sehwag with me, who can just come in and hit a few shots and, counter attack the opposition. So these are my 2 test openers.
Well, that makes complete sense to me. And somebody else on this podcast has also picked Murli Vijay and Virendra Sehwag as openers. Rav, you have gone for that same selection.
I did, yeah. Just to echo what Dia said, I think we look at Vijay, we look at his contributions, especially overseas. I do think he came off the boil after 2016, but I think if you look at his contributions, even in India early doors, I think he made a double 100 partnership with Tendulkar, I think at one point, Pujara. So I think you look at where he was able to solidify us at the top of the order, going away to hard places like South Africa, the likes of Steyn, Morkel, etc., and performing quite well. Sehwag probably slightly past his best in this decade, but the threat alone of that guy is enough to always make me pick him. The one stat I love about Sehwag is that no player in Test history has scored more runs at a better strike rate. So there are players who've struck more runs, but not as fast, and there's players with better strike rates. But that combination of the two gives India such a threat in any World 11.
Yeah, dare I say that even the great Sachin Tendulkar, I don't think struck fear in the heart of the oppositions the same way that Virendra Sehwag did. He was a complete force of nature, that guy. Ronak, let's go over to your picks for openers.
Yeah, so I have a slightly different thought here. So obviously Murli Vijay is something who is constant. I think he's had a fabulous decade of Test match cricket. I think the 2014 series in England was like the turning point for him. I think he was the leading run scorer for India in that series. Also in Australia, he stitched a very good partnership with Virat Kohli, where they almost chased down around 360, and he got out on 99. So I think this decade has been very good for Murli Vijay, 12 centuries. So I think he's there. For the second opener, there were a lot of options. Mayank Agarwal was one, but his sample size was very small considering he's just played around 10, 12 matches. Then there was Gautam Gambir, but he slithered away in the first half of 2010, and he didn't perform that much. Sehwag again he was at his peak in the early 2000s and in the 2003 2004 time, but after 2010 I don't think so he has any specific performance to speak about. So it was a difficult choice. I have gone with Shikhar Dhawan for my second Test opener, purely because the amount of runs he scored, especially in the home series for India. It also gives a left and right hand combination at the top. So I think Shikhar Dhawan would be one choice where I would prefer over any other opener. I won't say that Shikhar Dhawan himself has performed exceptionally well to cement his place in the squad, but given the kind of options that we have, we've always had a challenge in finding the right opening combination, and out of the options that we have, Shikhar Dhawan at least has performed considerably well. So I think I would go with Shikhar Dhawan and Murli Vijay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and you also have some company because somebody else has gone for the same opening combination. It is Amish. Murli Vijay and Shikhar Dhawan.
Yep. So to be honest, echoing what everyone has said, I think I was pretty indifferent between our opening pairs as we've gone through a few. Shikhar Dhawan and Sehwag's stats within the last decades are very, very, very similar. However, I think Vijay and Shikhar Dhawan they had a period of very good partnerships, and therefore just continuing that combination. But either way, because I think they both bring a similar game. But then again, just the fact that he's batted so much with Vijay, I just thought that combo can continue.
Yep, fair enough. Some good picks there. So that leaves the one rogue in the group. Gurkirat, who have you gone for your openers?
So, like everyone mentioned, Murli Vijay has been the standout opener without a doubt. I mean, I also feel the numbers that he has probably don't do justice to his contribution, because there have been enough innings where he's batted a lot of time and not been able to score much. Like if you look back at Johannesburg 2018, he batted 127 balls in the second innings on that pitch. It was a minefield, right? Then not to forget, he scored 95 in the second innings in Lords when we won there after sort of 28 years. And the Adelaide Test match in 2019, like his 99 on the fifth day could have easily been Sehwag's 87 in Chennai in 2008, but it turned out to be like Chennai 99. So he's had lot of contributions, and the one country where you think he's not done well enough is New Zealand, but New Zealand is anyway a hard place to sort of score runs. So I mean that you'll have to excuse him. So Murli Vijay is definitely one pick. Now coming to the second opener, if you just look at everyone, nobody sort of works into that side, because you talk of Virendra Sehwag, he only has 100 in this decade, and that was in Ahmedabad versus England. It was in the flattest of which. Gautam Gambir doesn't have 100 in this decade. Then you come to you talk Prithvi Shaw scored runs, but the sample size is too small. Mayank Agarwal again, sample size is small. So I was sort of stuck between Rahul and Shikhar Dhawan. Shikhar Dhawan obviously has had runs at home, he also has the record to score the fastest 100 on debut, and then 100 in one session against Afghanistan. But KL has had 100 in England. He's had 100 in Australia, and then he has a 199 at home. And let's not forget that in 2017, when Australia toured India, he scored 750s in that series. So although he's been out of form, but I think on potential, he's a slightly better batsman. Nothing to take away from Shikhar Dhawan, because if you see the records that he has in New Zealand, no other opener has it. But again, at that time the pitches in New Zealand were pretty flat, and he enjoyed that. So I'll go with KL Rahul, but just on potential. There's not much to choose between a KL Rahul and a Shikhar Dhawan. Just that I feel that he's technically more compact.
Yeah, the first mention of one KL Rahul in India's Test team of the decade, eh? How about that? Food for thought, everyone. Food for thought. Rav, if I could just come to you for a minute as well, just to get your thoughts on this, because we were talking about this not that long ago. Murli Vijay, obviously, everybody has picked him for this Test team of the decade. Isn't it crazy how, looking at it now, Murli Vijay probably will never get back into this Test side?
Yeah, I think just looking back at the contributions that have been listed, there are some big overseas wins there that simply wouldn't have happened without his contribution, his ability to bat time, to blunt the new ball, and to enable the middle order to score. So I think he won't come back, and I think that's probably symptomatic of, after the 14-15 tour of Australia, since then, he came back to England, started nicking off a little bit, but that was really, it was a horror tour for most openers. England openers didn't get any runs out that series. So I also think that now, because they're starting to look, obviously we've seen Shubman come in, we've seen Prithvi, which on Indian surfaces, I think Prithvi will smash lots of runs. And there is that youth element now in there. And also with Vijay, there were a lot of similar dismissals in the last few years where perhaps, maybe his eye is not what it was, technically, just the similar kind of dismissal. So I think the team probably has started looking forward towards the future and the next batch of overseas tours, where Vijay is probably not going to feature.
Yeah, even in the last IPL, really, he kind of looked like a shadow of his former self, really. But salute to Murli Vijay. Obviously, made some intense contributions to the team in the last decade. Now, Rav, you might remember the last time we picked a World Test 11. When we did that, we had some X-Men like telepathic powers between us, where everybody miraculously picked the same middle order on that podcast.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, that it was Tendulkar, Lara, Callis, Gilchrist was everybody's 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's right. That's right indeed. Yeah. That hasn't exactly happened this time round, but the number 3 position, everybody, the minds were aligned again. Everybody has picked the same number 3, which is, of course, Jitesho Pujara. Amish, I want to play devil's advocate with you for a little bit, for a little bit about Pujara, right?
Yeah.
His away Test average is 37.8 away from home, and yet he's in India's Test team of the decade. Just to play devil's advocate here, I'm a big fan of Pujara, Gujarati. I'm never going to say anything bad about him, but is he actually as good as we think he is?
So once again, I don't think we can just look at stats, because the point we made about Vijay, sometimes he's made good contributions, and that's just killing off the new ball and batting time. And Pujara does this over the last few years. He's come in when we're 10 for 1 or at such a low score, and he's took us to a place where we're 60, 70, 80, 100 for 1. Our away tours, it's not like we've got a list of batsmen who have a strong average. However, if you go through each innings like I did yesterday, you can see the contributions he's put in those tours, and he's been pivotal for us to have the performance that we've had. Fair enough, there's Australia, which we won, but there's other tours which we didn't win, where he still stood up, which we can't say everyone else did. Relatively, I think he's still been fantastic, and I don't think we can use his average and stats as a measure, because it's about the eye test and the performance and nature of his innings. So someone could get a solid 40 and bat time, kill off the new ball, and set the foundations up for the middle order, which is more valuable than getting 100 on a flat track. because everyone else is going to get 100. Whereas if you're getting 40 when everyone else is getting 15, 20, then that 40 speaks volumes.
Yeah, fair enough. Dia, what do you think about Jitesho Pujara? Obviously, you picked him.
Well, if first of all, coming to the stats, I mean, scoring 6,000 plus runs and having double hundreds against the teams like England, Australia, that speaks a lot about him as a player. As you talked about his average, I think that's not his away average. That's not, like, according to me, not the correct measure to tell what kind of stature that he, like the kind of talent that he possessed and what kind of stature he has. Because I think I remember a little one innings against Sri Lanka in 2017 in Eden Gardens. It was swinging very hard over there. I mean, it was overcast conditions and the ball was swinging really hard, and we were at 30 for 5. I mean, a perfect England kind of a pitch where the ball was swinging, and Lakmal was the bowler who was coming very hard on us, and it was Jitesho Pujara who scored a 50 and got us to the total of 170, and eventually that match was drawn. But yeah, that innings will always be special for me, because if it wouldn't have been for him, we would have got out for like 100 or something, maybe not even that. So yeah, because his, according to me, his job is, to tire out the bowlers so that player like Ajinkya and Virat Kohli can come in and score runs. So I think if you're playing together as a playing 11, as a team, it's very important you should know your role. Because
Correct.
according to me, yeah, the kind of deliveries that we see, the way Jitesho Pujara has got out in this, Australia tour, that the deliveries have been amazing. The way Pat Cummins has bowled those line and lengths are not easy to play by anyone. So yeah, that's one thing. And his technique, we all know how good of a player he is. If we compare him to Dravid, that's because of some reason, because he knows he trusts his defense. So yeah, at times stats is not that good of a measure to tell what kind of talent and a player possesses. And that's why I think that his away series record, if we see against Australia, we saw that in 2018 he was the highest run scorer. In England he couldn't score that well. But yeah, I think that ups and downs always come for a player. But I think he has been a vital cog for us as a player at number 3. So he should definitely be there in everybody's team, and he is. So yeah.
He is indeed. Yeah, he is indeed.
Ash, let me just drop some stats here. Let me just drop some
context.
Sorry, let me drop some context. So we talk about his average over the last few years, which has deteriorated. Fair enough. But 2017, his average was 67, speaks for itself. 2018, he had an average of 38, 23 innings, 304 50s, yeah? So not the best average. However, that includes South Africa away. He came in at 16 for 1, saw 4 wickets fall around him. He second top scored with 26 after Pandya, when Pandya had that brilliant knock. Third test, he got a 50 from 180 balls when India finished 187 all out. So we can say it's a low score, but look at the team total. His contribution has been pivotal. That same year against England, he wasn't picked for one test and everyone was questioning why. He came back and he showed the value he brings to the team. He got, in the second test, he got 17 and 87, I think. And the total runs scored by India was 230 odd. The following match, he got 70 odd. Following match, got 132, where India got 273 all out. At Oval, he walked in at 6 for 1 and he got out when India were on 100. That same year in Australia, no one needs to be reminded of the value of his knocks. 2019, he's averaged 46 from 11 innings with 100 against Australia, which was arguably, it helped us draw the test match, if I remember correctly. He came in when we were 10 for 1 and he left when we were 418 for 6. Yeah, to be honest, the manner of his knocks speaks for itself. Like, you can't look at stats. You have to understand what's happened in the game and then look at his contribution.
Good, Kirat.
Now, what has happened with Jitesho Pujara is now a lot of talk is only revolving around the last Australian tour, but his contributions have been much more. And I I'd like to take everyone's mind back to when he initially started. If you remember the 2012 series against England at home, which we lost 2-1. The pitch in Mumbai was a minefield, and Pujara scored 100 in the first innings. He scored a 135. So it's not that his innings at homes in India can be discounted. He scored a 135 in those conditions where ball was turning square. Monty Panesar and Graham Swan were running a riot. I remember Monty Panesar taking a fifer in both the innings. So he's
Oh, don't
also had
remind me, Jesus.
so he's also had those kind of an innings. Then there was an inning in Sri Lanka where he opened and carried his bat. He became the fourth Indian batsman to do that. And again, that pitch was also something where the ball kept swinging throughout the day. India scored some 300 odd. He was 145 not out. Then his double hundred in Ranchi. It was a attritional surface. India were five down and were just some 30 60 short 30 40 runs short of a lead, and he batted with Riddhiman Saha, had a 200 odd partnership. That he also made the record for most balls in an innings by an Indian batsman.
Yeah.
There's been that. Apart from that, he's had a 150 in South Africa Wanderers, which everybody forgets because it was quite a long time back. Again, his only failure is been it's hard to call it a failure. It's again, he's not done well in New Zealand where he's played. But again, the sample size is small. He's only played 4 innings, and there also he's been able to bat time a little bit. And I was just having a look at Rahul Dravid's stats as well. So Rahul Dravid averages 29 in South Africa and 33 in Sri Lanka, and in both those countries Pujara averages more. So where Rahul Dravid gets ahead is New Zealand and England, and we all know how good he was in England. So looking at that perspective, one also has to keep in mind what the bowling attacks are. I actually think that in this decade the fast bowling has been better than what it was in the previous decade, because now you see all teams have good fast bowlers. And I was looking at the bowling attacks. The easiest pacer that you can say that India has faced in the last two overseas tour cycles is Kyle Jamieson and Lungi Ngidi. And if you compare them with the third pacers in the previous decade, they're probably better, because we are seeing what Kyle Jamieson is doing. So even if he averages away 38 or 37 away from home, in today's times where a lot of times 250 is becoming the
Exactly.
average
Yeah.
first inning score, that 37 38, and he's averaging some 110 balls every inning. So then it counts for a lot if you see in that context. Obviously, if you compare his numbers to Rahul Dravid or say other number threes who've batted in the last decade, where I genuinely feel that the bowling was not as good and batting was not as difficult, then obviously he'll probably look a smaller player. But if we are to think of this decade, I think he's one of the best number threes that has been there in this decade, and I think he will probably be short of a Kane Williamson or a Joe Root. But for the Indian side, he's been as good as a number three that can be there. In fact, he's been the opener in some way or the other on many occasions, so he has to walk in that side.
Yeah, Ronak.
So I think a lot of it has been said about Pujara. Only thing I would like to say is that if right now, if you'd ask any one of us or a large sample size to pick the first batsman you would pick in the Indian cricket, I think it would be Pujara over anyone else, even maybe Virat Kohli. That is the kind of value Pujara brings to the Test squad. I think people maybe talk about his performance because when he was playing for Saurashtra, he used to score those big daddy hundreds, and everyone thought that he is going to be that big Test player that Rahul Dravid was. And when he arrives in the Test format, he would score double centuries, triple centuries at will. Something maybe which has not happened to the expectations that we had when he was playing Ranji Trophy, but nonetheless, I think his performance speaks for himself. And also, when you see his performance in comparison to the other players in the team, I think he is doing much better than maybe your openers, your number 5, number 6. So that way, there is no doubt that Pujara is your best number 3 player for us. Criticism not counting, I think he's played to his potential according to the conditions that he's got, according to the situations he's been put in, maybe in the first over, in the second over, in most of the matches. So I don't justify the criticism for Pujara in any way. One thing maybe I have a slight different opinion on is that I don't understand the concept of Pujara tiring the bowlers, because I feel that scoring runs is the best way to tire a bowler. And in some cases that it has worked, wherein Pujara has faced around 150, 200 deliveries and scored 30, 40 runs, which has maybe helped other batsmen as well. But I strongly feel that Pujara can score more freely because he has the talent to score freely. If he plays naturally, he can get his strike rate up to 40, 50. which is something that going ahead, because I think scoring runs is the best way you can tire a bowler. And I think if he works on that game, or if maybe the team management allows him to work on that game, or maybe if the openers, don't get out early and he's brought in a much comfortable situation, I think we'll see a much better version of Pujara going ahead.
I think if you look at also one big thing is the last decade has been the decade of the IPL and the decade of that dominating Indian cricket and dominating selection across formats. And for a guy that plays one format where we don't get many warm-up games abroad, that gives additional context as to why those numbers are down. You know, he averages more in India than Sachin Tendulkar, I believe. So you got to look at where he plays, the decade, the context of the cricket that's being played. The guy doesn't get any real lead up into these series the way that a lot of the other guys do when they play white ball games before, they get themselves ready and then they're ready to go. Pujara often comes in cold and still on the back of that performs. So I think he deserves a lot of credit.
He's a real relic as well, isn't he? Just in terms of his style and stuff, just being an out and out kind of test specialist batsman whose game is just entirely based on his defense. Yeah, you don't really get that much anymore. Good.
Just have one last thing to add, in comparison, if we compare it with the previous decade, especially his away average, he hasn't had a chance to play in Pakistan or play in Bangladesh or play in Zimbabwe, where, these are the countries where you get batting friendly conditions and sort of can score runs. I remember in 2006 when India toured Pakistan, the first two test matches, there was hardly any third innings. Pakistan would bat first, they would score some 600 odd runs. India would bat first, and then India would score another 500 runs, and the test match would get over. So he hasn't also had those opportunities where he's found easier batting tracks also. So that is also need to be seen in that context, because these pitches are actually flatter, and India haven't played in Pakistan or in Bangladesh or in Zimbabwe for him to stat pad to bring his average up.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep, there we are. Jitesho Pujara, number 3 selection across the board for everybody. Shout out to Jinesh on the Elite podcast group who can listen back to this segment later on. Why not? Let's go over to Rav and get into our middle order. So like the 4 to 6, 4 to 7 sort of position, however you determine the composition of your team. So what is your middle order, Rav?
So middle order, I've gone number 4. I've chosen the greatest batsman the world's ever seen, Tendulkar. Number 5.
I thought you were going to say Tewatia. All right, carry on.
Number 5, I've gone with the current best batsman in the world, Virat Kohli. 6, MS Dhoni. 7, Ravindra Jadeja. It's quite telling that obviously we're doing this podcast on a day when Rahane has scored an absolutely brilliant 100. Who knows what my pick would have been a week later. But I think looking at Tendulkar, obviously he debuted and finished in 2013. I think there's some stats that we will hear about his contribution in the decade being better than maybe people think, an average of 50. And the fifth highest. Amish, do you want to tell us the stats on this one? I'm going to let you do the honors.
Mate, you're all right. Keep going. You've got it.
I'm reliably informed by Amish, one of the best stats I've ever heard, that in this decade, Tendulkar is the 5th highest Indian run getter, and he finished in 2013. So I think that suggests that the replacements that we've had since have really found it quite difficult, as anybody would, to really knuckle down and even India play more test cricket than they've ever played before. So we're playing more games, and obviously he's still there. So I've picked Tendulkar at 4.
Just to really put that stat into some context for a minute, because we really need people to understand this. The 3 years that Tendulkar batted in the 2010s.
From the age of 38 till 40, he averaged 50. That obviously comes with 2010 when he had that amazing year. He was the ICC Cricketer of the Year, got a double 100 against Australia, for example. So I think that shows that even at that age, he was able to perform. And when I looked at the brief of this 11, it was who can perform for India in a test in this decade. And I didn't have the heart to leave him out.
Fair enough. All right, carry on.
And then afterwards, obviously, we've gone for the main man himself, VK. I don't think there would probably be many debates on that one. He's been absolutely splendid, taking up the mantle from Sachin and really transformed the side in his own mould as well of leadership. So I think he deserves a lot of credit. MS Dhoni, one thing that's not said a lot about MS Dhoni is just because the guy didn't particularly like Test cricket doesn't mean that his batting wasn't tremendously effective on tours abroad when the seniors were not doing very well at all. So 2014 50s, when the team was 30 for 5, 8 for 4 at Old Trafford. So I think Dhoni gets in on that, potentially on leadership as well. And then afterwards, I've gone for Ravindra Jadeja for one big reason, which is that the guy who has triple hundreds in first class cricket, the moment he was told to take his batting seriously, when he came in at the SCG on that tour 4 years ago, he came in, and since then, you look at his runs, I believe he's averaging 50 plus since then. So in that context, it's absolutely superb. Gives India a fifth bowling option as well. And more than anything, Jadeja, he will knuckle down. He will give us those steely runs, but also he can up the ante if there's a declaration coming, for example. I don't think there's anybody better for India at 7 currently.
Fair enough. That is a solid middle order. Rav, not to single you out or anything, but you do have the distinction of being the one and only person on this group who has not picked Ajinkya Rahane. Just to throw that out there. Amish.
I probably would have done, but you know.
Well, yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Amish, let's talk about your middle order and your composition.
Yep. So gone for Tendulkar at number 4. As Rav said, he's our top 5th run scorer in the decade, and he only played 3 years, so he's got 2,951 runs after Kohli, Pujara, Rahane, and Vijay. And that's from 64 innings. He's the second batsman who's averaging 50 plus after Kohli. Speaks for itself. Like, despite the fact that he had such a short time, like, no one's come into the batting order and put their hands up from 7 years.
God, that's such a mind-boggling stat. That is. I really can't get my head around that. That is quite incredible.
Okay, I don't want to reveal that. Let's not ruin it. But if you take 2010 out, it has a huge impact. So that was a very successful year for him. But either way, everyone else is still playing with the same rules, so no one stood up and accordingly. Number 5, I've got Kohli, same as Raz. Indifferent, to be honest. Like, you can't really argue with that. I have gone for a 7-4 composition, and therefore I had Rahane at 6 and Dhoni at 7. Rahane, despite the last few years, he's still been a huge contributor to our last decade. The number of runs scored, good runs away from home, speak for itself. And yeah, he's our top 3rd run scorer. Dhoni at number 7. It's not unusual for India to play a 7-4 composition. And yeah, number 7, Dhoni averaging 35, 40-ish or whatever it is. You can't go wrong there. Like, as such a powerful top order. I guess that leaves me with 4 bowling options. And the one suggestion that I had was, because I was indifferent about an opener, and we've all said that Pujara has opened before, I wouldn't even mind sending Pujara as an opener, moving Kohli to 3, Tendulkar 4, Rahane 5, and then you could, it's anyone's pick of who's that number 6, but I actually thought Hardik Pandya.
Wow.
I'll tell you why. Yes, his sample size is very small, but how he's matured. Bumrah's sample size is small, so we can't really use sample size as a rationale. On the assumption that Pandya is able to bowl, he gives us that 5th bowling option, and his batting has matured massively in the last 18 months. So just having the lower order of, let's say Dhoni comes in at 6, Pandya 7, Jadeja 8, Ashwin 9. That's a deep batting lineup like you have with England, Australia. Like that's a game-changing.
So if you were to go with that configuration to squeeze Hardik Pandya into your team of the decade, which one of your openers would you get rid of, Vijay or Dhawan?
It would be Dhawan.
It
would be Dhawan. But then again, I'm still a fan of Dhawan, and this is just throwing something out there that we could do this if, depending on the conditions or whatever, knowing that Pujara can't open. And it's not like you're gonna, Kohli's batted at number 3 before, and that's an adequate replacement. But yeah, otherwise it was a 7-4 composition.
Fair enough. Wow, we've had KL Rahul and Hardik Pandya both mentioned on this podcast, Team of the Decade. Eh? How about that? Let's go over to Dia and talk about your middle order, Dia.
Well, I'm really sorry. I couldn't get Sachin Tendulkar in my playing 11. Um, I wanted him, but yeah, I couldn't have him in the playing 11. So, being a Kohli fan, I've got Kohli at 4, and then I've got Ajinkya Rahane. And for that, I will say that their partnership, if we see, especially in the overseas conditions, I remember Adelaide 2014, Australia, they both together have stitched wonderful partnerships. I remember one in Indore as well, where against New Zealand, where Virat Kohli, I'm sorry. Where Virat Kohli and Ajinkya Rahane, they stitched one wonderful partnership. So their partnership, the way they complement each other together when they bat together. So yeah, now speaking individually
except the
of
run
them.
out last week. Except the run out last week.
Yeah, that run out. Okay, yeah, that was that fizzed us like a lot. But before that, their partnerships, we all know that they have complemented each other every time. And then now talking about Virat Kohli, well, he has been the highest run scorer for India in this decade, having 2,700s. 1,000 plus runs consecutively in 2016, 17, 18. Hundreds in Sena countries, having 7 double hundreds. I mean, we can just go on and on, just talk about his stats. So he has to be there. He has got all these numbers at number 4. So for me, he has to be the best number 4 batsman that we have got in this decade. Now talking about Sachin Tendulkar, we know in 2010, I guess, he got 5 centuries, 1,000 plus runs. But but after that, we all said that his average was still 50 plus, but I think that still Virat Kohli, his numbers speak for themselves, that he has to be there at number 4 according to me. And then at 5, Ajinkya Rahane, well, he was made the vice captain of Indian cricket team entirely, I think according to me, entirely based on his test hundreds that he got abroad. Because his back foot, we all know he's a good back foot player, and you need to be a very good back foot player to, play in the overseas conditions. And that he has shown in MCG in 147 that he scored, this 104 that he's not out right now, that 103 in Lords, who can forget that? So no matter what the conditions are, whether it's bounce, it's swing, he is always there to score runs for us in the overseas conditions, and he has got his 188 against New Zealand and India only. So away records, home records are wonderful. Then I've got MS Dhoni. Yes, everyone has got MS Dhoni, but yeah, Ridhiman Saha is also there, but I don't think that he could do justice to that place according to me, and I would definitely go on with MS Dhoni. Although if we see, although Ridhiman Saha has also done well in his batting, but I think still MS Dhoni is a better option for us. And also his keeping as well, since we haven't talked about it. So I think his keeping skills also, he has got, I guess, 256 catches, his stumpings and everything. We all know how good of a wicket keeper he is. And yeah, the 224 against Australia in 2013. So yeah, that also tells that, he deserves that place. And then at 7, I've got Ravindra Jadeja. Well, one of the best, according to me, one of the best all-rounders that we have got in this decade, especially in Test cricket. I mean, and the way Ashwin and Jadeja again complement each other when they bowl together, especially in India, when it's spinning, they can be a venom for the oppositions, according to me. And yeah, he has also done pretty well against Australia. I remember in 2017. And yeah, against England, he picked up 164, I guess, in 2016. So yeah, his stats also speaks a lot about him as a player. And, his batting also, he has, I guess, got 102 in 2018, I guess. So yeah, so that also, whether it's batting, and that we are seeing today as well, the way he's batting right now, the way he, is helping out Ajinkya Rahane in building that partnership. So yeah, he's a key player for us. So yeah, I've got Ravindra Jadeja at 7.
So yeah, we actually haven't talked about who our captains are of all of these teams. Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to the rest of you guys to mention it. But Dia, you made a note on your list of players that you sent me that Kohli was your captain. You've given the captaincy to him ahead of MS Dhoni.
Yeah, definitely. We have kept the Test mace since 2016 till 19. So yeah, we have won away test matches, home test matches as well. We have been unbeaten so many times. We have defeated Australia in Australia under his captaincy. We have defeated Australia in India as well. We have won that. I remember that the 2018 test match against South Africa that we won, that one test match that we won. We defeated them, South Africa and India as well. So there have been like a lot of stats, have, like a lot of matches have been there where, Virat Kohli has proved to be one of the best test captains that we could ever get, especially in this decade. So I'm definitely going to go with him as my captain.
Fair enough, Captain Kohli, eh? So Amish had a little bit of a shocked look on his face, knowing that Tendulkar was not in Dia's team. But there is somebody else who has not picked Sachin Tendulkar in their test team of the decade, and that is Gurkirat. Gurkirat, can you tell us about your middle order?
Yeah, so before making this, I specifically asked if we'll be looking at 2011 to 2020 or 2010 to 2019. So I thought since we are doing it in 2020, so we'll go with 2011 to 2020. The fact is, in this period, Sachin has only one Test 100, although it's a very good Test 100. But I just thought that one Test 100 is not good enough to cut it into the side. And he was not very good in England when he toured in 2011, though he did recently in Australia. But I thought it's not just good enough for somebody to make it be it Tendulkar, because he was on the decline. So I had to leave him out. My 4, 5, 6 is Kohli, Rahane, and Dhoni. I genuinely feel that with the achievements that MS Dhoni has in the limited overs, his test batting isn't talked about. He has a very good 90 in South Africa. Let's not forget that in 2007, when he won a Test series in England, he played a match saving 76 on the fifth day in Lords, and even in this tour in 2014 when he was there, he played. He scored a couple of 50s when everybody was falling apart, and even in his last Test innings, he batted on the fifth day and played a match saving innings. So you will not find a lot of wicket keepers who've batted at 6 or 7 and have averaged 38, 39 across their careers, and doing that while being captains. And he's played 90 test matches, so it counts for something. And honestly, there is no other option who even comes near. Riddhiman Shah has been there, Parthiv Patel has played a couple of matches, Rishabh Pant has shown potential, but it's not just the contributions are just not good enough for them to make it to the side ahead of MS Dhoni. My number 7 would be Ravindra Jadeja, and if anybody was watching the game today, his numbers since 2016, he averages 42, 43 with the bat and 24 or 25 with the ball, which is a very good average. And he's had decent contributions outside of India as well. In India, we know how lethal he can be. And another thing is, before Ravichandran Ashwin dismissed Steve Smith 2 times in this Test match, it's Ravindra Jadeja who's had the number of Steven Smith. So he's had those contests. I remember Michael Clark being a thorn in uh, India's plans in 2012, 2013 when Australia came to India, and Jadeja got him out on 3 or 4 occasions. So he's been a very wily left arm orthodox spinner. I think he has more than 200 Test wickets now. So he deserves to be there. So my 4, 5, 6, 7 is Kohli, Rahane, Dhoni, and Jadeja. We've all talked about Rahane's contributions. I still feel that he hasn't done justice to his potential, because a raw Ajinkya Rahane when he made his debut was better than a raw Kohli or a raw Pujara. It's just that in the last 3, 4 years, Pujara and Kohli have come far ahead. Hopefully, the innings today is a sort of a second wind for Ajinkya Rahane, and he brings back those counter-attacking aggressive knocks that he's known for. But yeah, despite everything, he's definitely been our best number 5. So 4, 5, 6, 7 is like I said, Kohli, Rahane, Dhoni, and Jadeja. And I will also go with Dia and have Kohli as my captain, primarily because in the last phase of Dhoni's career, especially after 2011, you got the impression that MS Dhoni was thinking of draws the moment he sat on the plane to go overseas, and there were enough examples of this. You can talk of 2014 New Zealand when we had a 100 200 lead in first innings and then we gave it away. You can talk of the 2014 England tours. Our bowling plans were just not good enough. The captaincy wasn't imaginative. I remember uh, in 2014 we were having Umesh Yadav and everyone just come around the wicket and bowl to on Steve Smith's legs with a with a deep square leg and a fine leg in place. I mean, we'd completely taken out two modes of dismissal, that is the LBW and caught behind. So MS Dhoni, as good as a captain he was in limited overs, I don't think he was a good captain in test matches. And on the other hand, Virat, although he's got his playing 11 wrong on more than a few occasions, but on field captaincy and the changes he make, and especially if you listen to somebody like Ashwin who speaks how good Virat has been with his bowling plans, I think that is something which sort of nudges him ahead of Dhoni when it comes to tests. So Kohli the captain, Dhoni the wicketkeeper at 6, Ravindra Jadeja the all-rounder at 7, and Ajinkya Rahane at 5.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, another vote for Virat Kohli as captain. Ronak, let's hear your middle order.
Yeah. So, firstly, like how Amish mentioned, I also toyed with the idea of Jitesho Pujara opening because the lack of opening options we had. But and obviously then have Hardik Pandya for the overseas test and maybe Jadeja for the test in India. But I don't like the idea of changing the batting combination and want the players to play in the natural position. I also haven't gone with Tendulkar simply for the fact that in the last, as everyone mentioned, that from 2011 he's played 43 innings and just scored 1 century, and in 2010 also he scored 7 centuries, but I think 5 of them Bangladesh or the West Indies at home, and I think 2 of them have come in good testing conditions away from South Africa. So only basis of those 2 centuries where he's played really well in those testing conditions, I wouldn't maybe have Sachin Tendulkar. My 4, 5, 6, 7 is exactly the same as Gurkirat and Diaz have at 4, Rahane at 5. I was a bit tempted to consider Pant maybe for a second because to be honest, he's played decently well in the opportunities he's got, and if he had more matches under his belt, maybe 10, 15 more matches played in this decade, I would maybe consider Pant and Dhoni and then maybe taking a decision. But Dhoni is much better than Pant in the period that we have right now. So Dhoni comes at 6 and Jadeja comes at 7. As Rav mentioned, he can be that aggressor as well when you need those quick runs. But at the same time, his fielding is excellent. I mean, he can get that a run out when there is no hope, a brilliant catch, and something that we underestimate in fielding. And besides the bowling that he can do, besides the batting he provides, I think fielding is added dimension that Jadeja will bring to the team. So Kohli at 4, Rahane 5, Dhoni 6, and Jadeja 7.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's stick with you for a minute, Ronak, because obviously, as with most of us, Jadeja is our number 7, and that kind of bleeds into our bowling attacks, really. So let's get into our bowling attacks, and let's stick with Ronak. Ronak, why don't you tell us what your bowling attack is?
So I think out of the 11 players, I think the bowling was relatively more straightforward for me. I have Ashwin at number 8. He's been our best spin bowler of the decade, no doubt about that. Home conditions, away conditions, he's been the spearhead bowler for us. His batting is also was very strong in the early 2010s where he had those hundreds at home. A great person to have in the team wherein he can guide the young bowlers as well, give advice to us. So I think Ravichandran Ashwin picks himself up purely based on his performance. My 3 quickies will be Ishaan Sharma, Mohammad Shami, and Jasprit Bumrah. Ishan Sharma again being the spearhead of the Indian bowling. I mean, who would have thought he's just 32 years old? I mean, it seems as if he's playing for like 20 years or something. Relentless bowling. I still remember his Lord's 6 or 7 wicket haul where he won the match for us, and I think Ishan Sharma has just outperformed himself over the last decade where no one. He's there in my team. I have Mohammad Shami, who's been equally impressive. I think his strike rate has been very good. In around 50 matches, he's taken 180 wickets. There was an option between Mohammad Shami or Umesh Yadav, but Shami clearly is a better bowler in all conditions, has a better strike rate, reverse swings as well. And I think in home, both he's performed very well. One fact about Shami is that from 2015, in all away series, he's taken more than 15 wickets, except maybe New Zealand. We have played 5 away series since 2015, and he's taken more than 15 wickets in 4 out of those. Only the New Zealand tour, which we played in late 2019, 2020, where everyone struggled basically. is the only is the only situation where he didn't perform. So Shami comes into my team, and Jasprit Bumrah as my third seamer. Although the sample size is small, I think right now, even being just 3 years old into the international test format, he's leading the bowling attack for us. And I think the amount of games he's won single-handedly for us, I think the West Indies tour where he took 2 fifers, the Australian tour last year where I think in Melbourne he took a 5 wicket haul. I think Jasprit Bumrah has just outperformed himself in the last 3 years and just spearheaded the bowling attack where, despite being just 25-year-old, he's like the go-to bowler for any captain. So Ashwin at 8, which also strengthens the batting, and 3 pacers in Sharma, Bumrah, and Shami.
Yeah, I think we're gonna start seeing a repeat of the same names here now with this successful Indian fast bowling attack that have existed for the past decade. Good, you've gone with pretty much the same attack.
Yeah, there's not much to choose, honestly. I mean, Ashwin, he has the record for most Man of the Series awards. He's been, and this was when he could score. He could score hundreds. Also, his batting has fallen off a cliff, but he still adds so much of value with his bowling. And I'll add another thing. He's going to be my vice captain. I genuinely think that in the current crop of Indian cricketers, he's the smartest. If anyone has seen him talk, if anyone has seen his interviews and the talks he keeps having, the things that he comes up with are something which you don't usually. I remember him talking about how in a T20 game, you can outsmart the batsman by bowling 6 bad balls which he's not expecting. So for that reason only I'll have him as the vice captain. I'd thought of having Ishan Sharma as the vice captain because he's the most experienced, 97 test matches, but Ashwin is just a tad more smarter and tactically more smart, tactically ahead, so I picked him as my vice captain. Again with Ishant, in the last 4 5 years, if you see, he's been probably the most improved bowler across the world. His average has been around 2021 in the last 4 5 years, and he probably has been a part of 20 test wins away from home, which is probably at par with what Sachin has, or probably the most for an Indian. You talk of any test match that we have won overseas, Ishan Sharma's name is going to be there. He was very good in England last year. He was very good in England previously. He's very brilliant in South Africa, brilliant in England, sorry, New Zealand as well. He took a fifer. The thing that stands out in his case is that when Shami and Umesh were still struggling and emerging as bowlers, he was still the go-to man. If nothing was happening, you had an Ishan Sharma who could bowl dry. So his value is again, is sort of bit like Murli Vijay's. Just numbers always don't make
Yeah.
do that justice. He was not taking wickets earlier, but after having his county stint, he's bowling a little fuller and getting those wickets. But he was always valuable. Again, Bumrah, although he's not played a lot of test match, he's probably played 15, but he had a fifer in the first test match he played in England. He has a fifer in South Africa. He has a fifer in Australia. He has a fifer in West Indies. In New Zealand, obviously, he didn't do well because he was probably just coming back from injury. But his value is immense. I mean, despite the sample size being small, you you wouldn't have seen any bowler in probably the last 20 years who was probably as consistent. I did think about Zaheer Khan, for the third pacer, but the way he was bowling in 2012, 2013, he was just too down on pace. He was bowling in mid 120s. Then I thought
Well,
about,
I tell you what, we're talking about the small sample size with Bumrah and stuff.
yeah,
Just a spoiler alert, everyone. Umesh Yadav has not made it into anyone's team and hasn't been mentioned at all,
I'm
pretty much.
I'm just coming to it. So for the third pacer, I thought of Zaheer Khan, I thought of Umesh Yadav, I thought of Bhuvneshwar Kumar. Umesh Yadav, brilliant numbers at home. He probably averages 27, 28 at home. And rightly so. I remember a test match where India played with one pacer because Shardul Thakur got injured and he picked 10 wickets in the whole test. He's been brilliant at home and it helps him because he has a skiddy action. The ball doesn't swing much, so he's able to control the swing. But what happens is the moment India go overseas, when there's swing early on, and we have seen this in the last two test matches as well, he's not able to control that swing. But with the old ball, he's still been useful. But he averages 41 away from home in 19 test matches, and with an economy of 4 runs. So he's neither taking wickets, neither stopping the runs. So he's not adding value overseas. I thought of Bhuvneshwar Kumar. He was very good in 2014 in England. Took a fifer at Lords, scored 15 both the innings, scored a lot of runs. But again, his fitness is an issue, because I genuinely think that Bhuvneshwar Kumar as a package offers a lot more than Mohammad Shami, because Mohammad Shami is a little of blow hot and a blow cold bowler. In second innings, he definitely does better, but in first innings, sometimes you need him to be a lot more penetrative, and he has a tendency to spray the ball a little bit. But he's still good enough, to be the third pacer, ahead of Umesh Yadav for sure, and ahead of Bhuvneshwar Kumar, because Bhuvneshwar Kumar doesn't stay fit enough, and obviously because of the pace that Shami offers. So yeah, that's my 11 with Ravichandran Ashwin being the vice captain.
Wonderful. Dia, pretty much the same bowling attack for you too.
Yeah, I've also got Ashwin at 8, then I've got Shami, Bumrah, and Ishan Sharma. And because I think our bowling has improved so much in these last couple of years, and that was our biggest problems earlier, was that our batting used to do good and our bowling was our weak point. But now that has changed, and I'm really happy with that. And that has become that has happened because of the kind of bowling that we have got now. And if we see Ashwin, although his batting, that has fallen down. But yeah, he has got 2,000 plus runs. He has got 400, 4 centuries. He has also scored, and he's the highest wicket taker for India in this decade. So that also speaks a lot about him and the variations that brings in with his bowling. That is also one good thing. Because of that, he's able to adjust to different conditions where he is playing. That's why he's successful, not just in home series but in away series as well. Because the way we are seeing right now, he's bowling in Australia. I mean, he's the current highest wicket taker for us overall in the series, actually. So yeah, that variation part, and yeah, he's a very smart bowler that he thinks from his mind. And yeah, I think many people say that leg spinners are an in thing right now, that they should be there. But I think in Test cricket, if you've got two amazing finger spinners in the name of Ravichandran Ashwin and Ravindra Jadeja, I don't think we need any leggy to maybe confuse or whatever the tactics those bowlers apply. I think they both are actually really street smart bowlers who can bowl in pairs, as we say, that with that partnership that is there. So I think Ravichandran Ashwin is also that one player who is a match winner for us, whether it's his performance against Australia. Yeah, he's got 27 5-wicket hauls, 7 10-wicket hauls. So yeah, not just his stats, but his performances, everything speaks about him as a player. And on the other hand, Mohammad Shami, we all know what kind of a player he is. The way I think I'm a big fan of his reverse swing, as Gurkirat mentioned, that he's very good when it comes to the second innings. So yeah, when the ball starts, when reverse swing happen, I think he's that one lethal bowler for us. And again, if we see his stats, I remember that South Africa Wanderers, the match that we won, I have mentioned a lot about that match in 2018. Again, he was the match winner for us. He was that one player who knew how to clear the tail, because that has been one problem for us throughout, actually till now. But that was the apt representation of how you actually clear the tail. I mean, we have that is something that has been lagging in us. But I think the way Mohammad Shami bowled that day in the 4th innings, I guess on the 5th day of the Test match, that was just so wonderful. His 5-wicket haul was there, and yeah, so many wonderful performances has been there. He has got a 6-wicket haul in Perth as well, another 5-er in Sydney, I guess. In SCG. So yeah, his away records and in home as well. We see in India, reverse swing definitely happens. So yeah, he's that one lethal. He can be lethal for the opposition. And on the other hand, Ishan Sharma, as everybody has talked about him, I think the way he has worked on his wrist position, because I think it was in 2017, we saw a better wrist position from him. And that's when, he was good earlier as well. But that's when he started picking up wickets as well. Because, yeah, he has been always that bowler. He has been considered that bowler who can, just come in and, bowl long spells. But now he has become that bowler who can, of course, bowl long spells, but can pick wickets as well now. His record against New Zealand especially has been wonderful. Again, in Australia, last time he did well. And if we see Bumrah, Shami and Ishan together, they three as a, unit, fast bowling unit, are doing wonderful for us. It's not just one bowler, because they three hunt in pairs for us. And, that's one good thing to see. And yes, Bumrah, on the other hand, of course, I also thought about Bhuvaneshwar Kumar. We say him the king of swing. So that is because of some reason. But yeah, again, his injuries have been like worrisome. And on the other hand, Bumrah, the sample size is small, but as Gurkirat mentioned, he has got a 5-wicket haul in in all the way series, and actually the way we use him, because if we see, we are not going to see him playing in India. So yeah, that is also one thing good about Virat Kohli's captaincy, that the way he uses his bowlers, because Bumrah is something who is who is like the best bowler that we have got. So it's good that Virat Kohli uses him outside of India, and that's what we saw, and he has delivered those results outside of India only. That 5-wicket haul against South Africa, England, and yeah, 2 against West Indies and against Australia as well. So yeah, that also speaks a lot about him as a player. And yeah, and it's good that he's playing like outside, like abroad test matches. And yeah, so I think these three together as a fast bowlers for us are doing wonderful job. And yeah, Bumrah's strike rate is also of 22.35. So that is one good thing about him, that he's a strike bowler for us. He's going to get wickets for us at any cost. And yeah, last time also we saw this time only that how he cleared the tail. Again, one thing that we are not very good at. But yeah, again, he was very good, because it's very important that you bowl those Yorkers and those short deliveries to get the tail out, because we don't need to give them those extra runs. That's where the match just goes away from us. So if the bowlers, they learn this art, it's an art actually. So yeah, that will be a good thing for us. And yeah, that's these are my fast bowlers, and yeah, along with Ravichandran Ashwin.
Just one thing that I want to add. Dia mentioned about Ishan Sharma. If anyone has watched cricket regularly over the last few years, Ishan Sharma has had quite the number of lot of left-handed batsmen because of his wrist position that Dia mentioned. He's been able to bring to bring the ball in and then leave the batsman, while bowling from around the wicket angle, and he definitely troubled Alistair Cook a lot in the last that he played. And before that, he troubled David Warner while Australia was playing at home, and in the series, not the last series, but the series before. So that has been one massive improvement, on Ishan Sharma's part, the wrist position, and has really helped India. So that is one thing I was reminded of and wanted to add.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, Amish, you went for that 7-4 combination. So there's no triple fast bowling attack in your bowling attack.
Correct. I'm not indifferent to what everyone said about our bowling lineup, because it speaks for itself. But I was trying to come up with the strongest team across the decade, and we've included 2010. Hence, Tendulkar makes my cut. But Shami had to take the hit. I don't need to justify everyone else's position because everyone's already done it so clearly. But based on Bumrah's short performance, the impact he's had speaks for itself. Ishan Sharma, like everyone said, and I've gone with the 2 spinners. It's not uncommon for India, even in away tours, to have that 7-4 combination, and therefore I felt like we were comfortable. And if we did do that chop and change with Pujara opening, it gives us that flexibility of having that third bowler effectively come in. But I thought that for the strongest team, all-round team, and players who are in, I went for that 7-4. So yeah.
Fair enough. And who would your captain be, by the way?
My captain, it's a fair point on Kohli. I definitely take that on board. As much as I love Dhoni, I recognize that. However, if Dhoni is in our team and Kohli listens to Dhoni, so I'm happy with Kohli being captain, and he's got the presence of Dhoni to go to. And I listened to a couple of Insta lives that Ashwin was doing during lockdown, and they're so insightful. So you see his thought process, and there's definitely a lot of insight that we can benefit or leverage from of Ashwin. I don't really care who the vice is. It's more about the presence and input of Dhoni and Ashwin to Kohli. I'm sure that would be very, very powerful.
Fair dues. So that leaves us with the one rogue in the room who hasn't quite gone the same way as everybody else. Rav, tell us about your bowling attack.
Yeah, I've gone slightly different, everybody. The reason I've gone slightly different, so I went 5 bowlers. So obviously Jadeja batting 7. I've gone Ashwin 8, and then I've gone 3 fast bowlers. I've not gone for Ishan Sharma for one reason, which is just to put it out there. So Ishan in the last 3.5 years has been absolutely stunning, averaging under 21, I think, and played a really key role in all of those victories. However, I just feel that, and maybe that if we do this in 2 years' time, it will be a different result. But Ishant's kind of obviously had an amazing start 2007. Middle part of this decade that we're talking about kind of went off the boil. Champions Trophy, after that got dropped for a little bit, then has come back. So I went for a little bit of variety, and I went for our best ever left arm bowler, Mr. Zaheer Khan. The reason I went for him, and I take the point around his last few years, is that I genuinely feel, and I was at Lords that day when his hamstring went, if it was more fitness after the World Cup and, I don't know, too much partying, I genuinely think that we would have won that series. And I think his skills base, it was as effective in the latter part of his career as before. And that's the reason why I picked him. And also, he gives me a nice little bit of rough outside the off stump for my off spinner to target afterwards. So I went for Ashwin at 8. I think everybody's made a really good point there. He's a genuine test all-rounder. He's a very thinking cricketer. The only thing I'll say on that is I do think sometimes that slightly goes the other way for India, and he may slightly overthink sometimes. And maybe if you look at his bowling on this tour, I think CricViz has it that he's been more consistent. He's bowling the similar line, and his speed variation is actually less than it's ever been. So he's more confident in his own game, and I would hope so. Kind of, it's his 4th tour to Australia. So I think now with this round of tours over the next 18 months, this is really the chance for Ashwin to answer that question of winning games abroad for India. And I think that if you go back to 2018, even in England, he was striking very, very early. Edgbaston, he got Cook out twice, very, very early in each innings. But the problem is in a long series, Ashwin's fitness gets worse and worse progressively to the point where he can't finish series, and then his figures get worse. So if he can sort that out, and it looks like from this series he's doing that, and he's a lot more consistent, I think India won't have any problems. So I've got Ashwin 8, I've gone Zach at 9, I've gone Shami 10. Reason for Shami in there is he's a very, very clever thinking bowler. He always provides a threat, very good strike rate. And then finally, I've gone for the guy who can, I think it's been said by everybody, can just break a game open from anywhere, from any situation. You look at the Australians, even yesterday when Bumrah was bowling, he only took 4 wickets, but they were so uncertain just how to play him. Is he going to tail the ball away? Is he going to tail the ball in? And all it needs to be is 1 inch either side. And you get that nick. So I think he's a very thinking cricketer. We've got to look after him. I hope he doesn't play too much other forms of cricket. I think his biggest benefit to India is red ball away from India. And I think if we can keep him like that, I think we'll win Test series. So that
also easy to forget as well with Bumrah, because it came in a series which the opposition weren't the strongest, but he also has a Test hat trick, which is such a rare thing for an Indian fast bowler to have.
He has a Test hat trick, although he only has it because I think VK asked him to review it. I don't think he wanted to review it.
Genius captaincy, see?
Yeah, and the good thing with Bumrah is we talk about Ishant and going round the wicket to left-handers and then snaking the ball away. I'll just take everyone back to that Keaton Jennings dismissal at Southampton. Bumrah now has the ability to curve the ball back into left-handers and therefore challenge both sides of the bat. So I think that provides a lot of threat. And I think this time next year in England, the key for Bumrah really has to be to demolish the tail, because he is the one guy. You look at Mitchell Stark, whenever they need wickets for the tail, they bring Mitchell Stark in. And Bumrah, it's still quite early days, but he's got to learn that ability to be the guy that when India need to get rid of the tail, you throw it to Bumrah the same way that they do for other teams, and he can get that. So I think that's the only thing slightly that I would like to see him slightly, finesse a little bit more. But he's a very, very talented bowler.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that Rav had some brilliant points about Zaheer Khan, and even when during the twilight of his career, how smart he was. And if actually and somebody wants to talk about Zaheer Khan's smartness and brains, you have to see the IPL, the last 3 IPLs he played. 2012, 2013, 2014. He was down on pace, but he still knew how to get batsmen out. I think his last IPL wicket was AB de Villiers. So even when he was, you can say done and dusted, down on pace, he still had the smarts to, get the batsman out. So I still don't think that there's been a smarter bowler than Zaheer Khan. But had he
Agreed.
been fitter and like Rav mentioned, played a little longer, I genuinely sometimes feel very sad that Zaheer couldn't play 100 Test matches. He played till 92, and I think if he had played 100 Test matches, he would have gone past the 350 mark. He's somewhere around 300, but yeah, he could have easily. So that is there. And then what he mentioned about uh, what he mentioned about who's the player? Ashwin. Yeah, Ashwin and his fitness. Of course, it's been something that he genuinely has to work on because last tour to Australia, the first Test match he was brilliant, and then he didn't play a game because he got injured and couldn't recover. In England last year in Southampton, he played with the injured thigh or something, and I think that is where we lost that game. We could have easily won that fourth Test match had we played a Jadeja because Moeen Ali took 9 wickets in that Test match, although he had the benefit of bowling in the fourth innings, but you could see that Ashwin had lost his penetration. So that is a very, very good point that his fitness has, failed. Ashwin's fitness has failed Ashwin's skill somewhere, I feel, and that has been the case with Zaheer Khan as well. So it probably, speaks a lot more about Virat's contribution to the fitness side of things. We don't see bowlers breaking down that much. Ishan Sharma, it's understandable. He's played to nearly 100 test matches, 97 test matches. So that is bound to happen due to the fatigue that he's carried. But overall, I think the biggest legacy of Virat Kohli, the captain, would be the fitness culture that he's brought into the test side. Definitely, I feel.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And, Lord knows that Zaheer Khan's smarts are doing wonders at Mumbai Indians at the moment as well. So he's carrying on his legacy, it might be said. And with that, everyone, our time is up on this episode of the Test Team of the Decade, our Bharat Army pick of the Indian Test Team of the Decade. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions on this podcast. I'm sure our fans are going to love it. Let us know what you think. Hit us up on at the Bharat Army on all of our socials and tell us what your Test Team of the Decade is. And maybe we should start planning for this same podcast in 10 years' time to talk about the decade of the 2020s and to see who's going to be in that team. Prithvi Shaw, maybe Shubman Gill.
I just hope that if we have this discussion next time, my hair aren't white because of the troubles that the Indian team has given me, over the years. I just hope that I haven't added years to my life and my brain. I mean,
I'll probably be a lot grayer in my beard and stuff by the time we get to that point. Amish will have probably grown a beard by the time we get to that one. Thank you very much,
29 years in the making.
29 years in the making. Thank you very much, and everyone, and we'll be seeing you on the next podcast. Have a very happy new year from all of us. Take care. Peace.
Yeah.